Welcome to Module 8 of the Horse Council of British Columbia Emergency Preparedness Training Series. In this module, we are going to cover equine handling and behavior. Even though most of you that are volunteering at evacuation sites have experience in handling and working with horses, very few people have experience handling unfamiliar horses that are very stressed and scared. This module is going to cover considerations when handling horses that are stressed and scared. This module is not a general equine handling course or a horse training course. It is intended to bring forward safe handling practices when handling horses in emergency events, as they do not handle the same as they would in a setting they are familiar with and not experiencing fear. What are the more common risks that arise when handling horses in an emergency event? First and foremost, distressed and injured animals are very unpredictable and dangerous, and are a hazard to first responders, volunteers, owners, and the public. Handlers can be injured or killed by the animal by being struck, kicked, bit, or trampled. There can also be injury or death to the animal, or they can experience pain and suffering. There is also a risk to property being damaged. Risk can be mitigated by training first responders and volunteers in animal handling during emergencies. You should only utilize experienced handlers who use low-stress, safe handling methods. Everyone should wear the appropriate footwear, clothing, and gloves, and all loose animals should be contained as quickly as possible. The following best practices are intended to provide guidance for handling horses during evacuation and at evacuation sites, but much of the material is applicable to other livestock also. Livestock are extremely unpredictable. Never assume you know what they are going to do, because you don't. This is the leading cause of injury in people in regards to animals. It's assuming you know what they are going to do. Always be alert, always pay attention to them, and always be watching all the other animals around you. Fear is the strongest stressor of animals, and they will revert back quickly to their survival instinct to flee or to fight. This list is a list of the most common signs of fear that a horse will exhibit. This includes their head held high, their tail will be swishing, their ears will be continually moving around and watching, they may be grinding their teeth, they may refuse to move, they will kick or bite, their nostrils may flare out, they will be shaking or have very wide eyes, they may be constantly moving about, or they may rear up. Horses can kick. They can kick you while lying down, while running, and while sedated. You must be aware of where their legs are and where you are standing at all times. When a horse is lying down, you should always work along their spine and not around their leg area. And never, ever assume that a sedated horse cannot strike you, because they can. This video here shows you how quickly a horse can kick. It takes less than 1/3 of a second from liftoff to impact, and it is the equivalent of getting hit by a car traveling at 20 miles per hour. This diagram here shows you the safest area to approach a horse and where the hazard areas are. When approaching a horse, especially an unfamiliar or scared horse, you should always approach them on the left-hand side near their shoulder area. This is the safest area. Do not approach them from the front, as you can get struck by their front legs, bit, or trampled, and they're more likely to startle away from you. If you approach them on the right-hand side, this may cause them to spook or move away, as they normally are not used to being approached on this side. And you should never be within their kick zone of their back legs. If you are working around the back end of a horse, you should always be 4 feet or more away from them. 4 feet is the average reach of a horse when it kicks. Horses may also bite you when they are scared, so always be watching their head, as they can strike out and bite very quickly. Always allow animals to calm down before handling them. Frightened and frantic animals are very dangerous, unpredictable, and difficult to handle. So give them the time to calm down before you handle them, for their sake and for your sake. Slow is fast. Always be patient with animals, especially frightened ones. The slower you are, the calmer they will be. There's an adage out there about cattle. If you have 15 minutes to move cows, it'll take you an hour. If you have an hour to move cows, it'll take you 15 minutes. Being in a rush and trying to rush the animals only makes them more frightened and agitated and harder to handle. As a handler, when working around especially scared and frightened animals, you should do everything you can to make yourself less of a predator. This means you should not exhibit common predator traits. First and foremost is rapid movement. Try to make no rapid movement around them. This means running, jumping up and down, or waving your arms. You should always move quietly and calmly around the animals and talk to them in a low and calm voice. You do not want to yell or shout at them. This will just further elevate their fear levels. You cannot stop a panicking horse. Even a pony or miniature horse can drag a person. And do not underestimate the strength, agility, or even danger level of these smaller horses. Replace bridles with halters. Do not attempt to pull or control a horse with a bridle. From the ground, the bridle does not provide the control over a horse's head that you need, and it can easily break. If you do not have access to a halter, you can easily make one out of a length of cotton rope. As shown in this video, you start by making a loop with the end of the rope and then place the rope around the horse's neck. You take your longer end of the rope then and tuck it into your first loop to make a second loop that will go over the nose of the horse. You then adjust it on their head, the same as a normal halter would sit on it, and you have a temporary halter. This halter can also be used on cattle and sheep. You should always be confident and methodical in how you approach a horse and handle a horse, but you should never be overconfident. The overconfident horseman is the horseman that is most likely to get hurt. As discussed earlier, you should always approach a horse on the left-hand side. The reason for this is because horses are used to being approached on the left, because the left-hand side is the side we lead off of, because most of us are right-handed. It is the side that we normally mount the horse on. It is the side that halters hook on and that saddles cinch up on. So it is the side of the horse that they are most used to having us on and the most comfortable with us approaching. When leading a horse, you should always stand on the left-hand side, as we just discussed. Never wrap the lead around your hand or any part of your body, because if the horse spooks, you can get drug, or the lead can wrap around your hand and possibly amputate your fingers or your hand as a whole. You should always stay in alignment with the horse's head, as shown in this video, and always turn the horses away from you. You do not want to turn a horse into you, because if they spook, they will go right over the top of you, and they also are out of your line of vision, so you're not able to see what they are doing. Try to remain calm at all times with the animal. Do not give them too much lead, because they can get their head down and take off. And you do not want to hold the lead too short, as this makes it difficult for them to walk, and they may spook or act up. And always keep your eyes on the horse, so you know what they are doing and what their body language is expressing to you. Do not assume all horses are halter broke and trained to lead. This includes rodeo stock, feedlot horses, indigenous horses, feral horses, some breeding stock, and young horses. Horses are not born halter broke and ready to lead, and many people make the mistake of thinking all horses are halter broke. Very few horse owners are experienced in handling horses in a loose herd situation, similar to how we handle cattle and sheep, moving them as one big group. Most horse owners' experience is handling horses on an individual basis, where they walk out, catch them in the field, and bring them where they want them to go, or coaxing them with a bucket of grain. Handling horses in a group setting is best left to people who have herding experience with either horses or the other livestock species. Do not assume that just because a horse has a halter on, that it is nice. There are animals that may be halter broke and trained, but are still very aggressive and dangerous. This includes stallions. Certain breeds of horses are more aggressive than others, the individual personality of the horse, and most important in what we are discussing in this series, animals that are scared. Scared animals are very dangerous animals and do not behave in the same manner that they do when they are home in a safe environment. And finally, do not assume that all horses are going to willingly load in a trailer or even load at all. Teaching a horse to trailer is one of the most challenging aspects of horse training you will face, and it is also one of the most dangerous. First and foremost, horses are claustrophobic by nature, so asking them to go into a little square dark box is very scary to them. You are also going to encounter horses that have never been trained to load, and even more horses that may have limited trailer experience. In an emergency event, such as evacuation due to a flood or fire, The horses are going to be scared because of the environment around them. And then you are asking them to go into an unfamiliar trailer, quite often with unfamiliar horses, and being handled by unfamiliar people. If you encounter horses who will not load or become very dangerous while attempting to load them, you may have to leave them behind. Never, ever put yourself in harm's way trying to load a horse that does not want to load. And we will now wrap up Module 8 with a quick review of the key points. This module was intended to only provide guidance on handling scared and unfamiliar animals in an emergency event. Scared, distressed, and injured animals are extremely unpredictable and dangerous. When scared, horses may strike out, kick, bite, or flee. As a handler, you need to do everything you can to not exhibit predator traits. And always use safe handling practices when working with horses. You have now reached the end of Module 8 and can proceed to the final module on rescue and recovery.